All right, y'all. Welcome into the LA Sports Brotherhood. On our very last video, which literally came out like yesterday, we talked about how they might be moving quickly into these decisions. It kind of feels like momentum is building for the head coach, and nothing is official, but Chris Haynes and followed up by Shams and Woj in terms of favorite, and David McManaman too. All the people that we should trust have essentially said JJ Redick is going to be the head coach for the Los Angeles Lakers next season. Chris Haynes went so far as to say he's calling around, trying to see who will come on board as an assistant coach. So, obviously, we'll make the decision and talk about how things as the time comes when there's official. But for now, it's looking as official as unofficial can get. So, Matt, what are you thinking about this?
Yeah, so my little checklist for this coaching hire was three. I was looking out for three things. Number one was every one of these guys would have this. If not, there's a bigger problem. Just basketball IQ, like a true like guru, like film room dude, like just really smart basketball guy. Number two is experience slash respect. So the experience is self-explanatory, and respect. A guy that can have a locker room, not because they're a cool guy or their locker room, but because of like their experience as a coach, where even veteran guys would respect them. And then number three, most importantly, is like, do they have a system? Do they have an offensive scheme that we know works, and wherever he goes, like that's going to be the scheme. So Reddick, the first thing he checks, obviously, is a very smart basketball guy, has no experience whatsoever, but I mentioned experience slash respect. I think he has the opportunity to gain respect from these guys because to me he has all the qualities of a head coach. Obviously, like we said, he's a very smart guy, basketball guy, and he's like he seems like the guy that can command a locker room. He was a leader as a player, and those are the kinds of guys that become head coaches. He just has that demanding presence. When we when we see him talk sports, and our not our best player, but the best player of all time, and he's kind of still like the main locker room guy. LeBron, obviously, they have a great friendship. So if that guy, the greatest ever, respects him, it's likely that the other locker room guys are going to respect him. And then finally, we literally do not know if he has an offensive scheme, but you never. Maybe the past 6 months he was cooking something up. Maybe he has something that he's ready to go with, and him and LeBron have been talking. So we just don't know. But I think the overall view is just incredibly intriguing, incredibly high ceiling, but you know, there's just so much uncertainty with the guy who's never been a head coach. But I will say it doesn't feel like Steve Nash because correct me if I'm wrong. Kyrie and Katie didn't want Nash. Am I wrong? Or
I that they if they wanted him, they turned on him incredibly quickly, like within the first season. So I'd never know what's
that
going on with him, but yeah, something like that.
yeah, that didn't feel like it was like the guys, kind of wanted him. The guys respected him. It just feel like he came into a locker room and no one was happy. This feels different. One because Steve Nash and Reddick have different qualities. I think Reddick is more of a leader, a natural leader, and a natural like vocalist. So yeah, it feels a lot different. I think Reddick, if he has a scheme and he quickly learns how to manage stuff, timeouts, game plan, has his guys organized. That's the biggest thing. I think the leadership qualities will come on its own.
Yeah. I It's interesting because I don't think we necessarily disagree, but I definitely think about it differently. You laid out the three like the three things you were looking for, and it is, in my opinion, arguable that he fits none of them. I do
Yeah.
believe that he is a smart basketball person. I don't know how that bears out as a coach. I do think that players will respect him, but at the same time, if they are, there's just potential for if they feel like he's not prepared, which is very possible because it's the first time he's ever been on a coaching bench, let alone being the head coach at any high level. If they feel he's unprepared, like they felt Darvin Ham was unprepared, they will simply ignore him. They will turn on him no matter what his standing is with LeBron, with AD, with the league in general as like a person in the league because he's a respected player. He's a respected vet. There's a reason all these dudes go on his podcast, which is going to be an annoying thing to have to keep talking about podcasts and stuff. But they wouldn't like Max Christie starts a podcast. No one's going on the Max Christie podcast. I know it's an extreme comparison, but the general point is there. He's respected around the league. And then the third one, the most important one for both of us, he doesn't have scheme. Maybe he does. I don't know. The way I look at it is if he seems self-serious enough, like he cares about the sport, he cares about the way he's perceived in the sport. He seems like that is real enough to where if he was going to take the biggest head coaching job in the entire basketball universe and like he feels that he has prepared enough to the point where he could have a scheme, he could hire someone that he could work with and collaborate and build on something, and he's not just saying, "Oh, I'm going to hire a good coordinator." Which I don't know, that may be the case. That's the underlying thing with all of this. Not even underlying because it's very out there, it's present. We don't know. I mean, it's tough to know with any assistant too, which we talked about in the coaching search video. But at least with that, they have a tangible scheme. They have like references from coach, whatever. They've been around. We just don't know anything about JJ Redick. And we're going to talk way more about him specifically in multiple videos, especially because, like we said, it is all but official that he will be the coach. They're just going to wait until the end of the finals because the NBA doesn't want him to miss. We have names that are linked with him as an assistant coach or as assistant coaches to him. And I think they're pretty eye-opening. Not because they're like crazy, eye-popping, nice names, but instead it's because the names that have been consistently linked to the head coaching job for the Lakers are now the names that are being linked to being JJ Redick's assistant. James Borrego and Sam Cassell are the two names that have never stopped coming up. And as soon as it became JJ's the front runner, potential assistant coaches were James Borrego and Sam Cassell. It feels like the Lakers are doing this thing again, which we actually talked about. We specifically mentioned on the last coach video where they like a guy but don't think they could swing hiring him as the head coach, and they force him onto the staff. They did that with Jason Kidd. They did that with David Fizdale after that. I hate that, honestly. I hate that process. We talked about that being for JJ as an assistant to one of those guys. Instead, it looks like it's going to be flipped, and I just don't like it. I don't like that process because it signals to me that they don't have a wide reach around the league. And you're the Lakers. You should have the widest reach. If you're going after guys to be your head coach, and then the only guys that you're looking at as an assistant coach are the guys you hired or the guys that you're interviewing, because the guy you're choosing to hire doesn't have any coaching connections because he's never coached, that is a horrifically bad process to me. I don't think it's going to be a disaster because no one thought Darvin Ham was going to be a disaster, and that's as close to a disaster as you can get. It just doesn't signal to me that they have changed anything about the way they do all of this little stuff. And I know hiring a head coach isn't a little thing, but the roster building, frankly, has not been that bad. I know people want to be upset, but it's not been bad. Pelinka's been largely competent at doing that, aside from one massive mistake. This stuff has not been good, and has not been good in a long time, and I don't think anything about this process signals to me that they're going to be better. Sorry for going for a long time, but I really don't like that aspect of it, man.
Yeah, it's just scary. It's frustrating. I mean, like you said, I listed my three things. He went 1 for 3 on those.
Yeah.
And the one I said, I think every coach had that quality. You just have no freaking idea at all. That I mean, that's what it comes down to because the guy's literally never coached, and I don't care about the podcast. I never care about any of that
Yeah,
stuff.
it doesn't
That's
matter.
anyone who talks about that is 15 years old. But it's scary. I mean, because as far as experience, I think you can underestimate that, and I was very vocal about not getting another rerun like Doc, like Bud. Those guys are all sucked. They'll all get fired again and keep getting fired and getting jobs.
Yeah.
But like the guys numerous occasions said, yeah, it felt like we weren't really prepared, felt like we didn't know what was going on. That cannot happen this year. For the love of God, it can't happen. And how's that going to get better? By hiring a guy who's never coached before? I don't think that's how it works. So that's really my big concern. Is he going to get it like that? Because LeBron is 40 years old, going to be 40 years old this year. We're on like a final run type of, vibe here. So is hiring a guy who's never coached before really the move? I think the only reason I'm like forcing myself to talk myself into this is because I really, really do think he has the qualities to be a great coach. I think he will be a great coach eventually. It's just, is it now? Is it in 2024, 2025? With, coming off two guys, we've had, how many coaches have we had in the past 10 years? Since Phil Jackson, we haven't had a steady coach.
There's
And to hire
been
a guy who's never
yeah.
coached before, it's tough, man. I don't know.
Yeah, we haven't had a coach last longer than 3 full seasons. Byron Scott actually the closest, and he was hired because he was the worst coach in the history of basketball because we wanted to lose him as many games as possible. So yeah, I don't know. We're gonna expand a lot. Don't worry about it. But this is like our kind of acceptance pod, talking about what we think is gonna happen. Yeah, there's room for hope. I don't like funny. It's funny that I think about it both ways. On one hand, if you're a Darvin Ham hater, you realize how far we can go. I mean, getting swept in the Western Conference Finals is good enough for the Lakers, but it's still not a season that is not embarrassing. And that was under Darvin Ham, who is a basketball terrorist to 90% of Laker fans. So if you have the right players and the Lakers have the right superstars at least, if you build a team that is competent and effective, then basic scheme and structure will be enough. You have two basketball geniuses on each side of the court. So I don't think it'll be disastrous because JJ Redick, if for nothing else, is a level-headed person. He's not gonna like crash out like if you hired some random some different um whatever like different former NBA player. But it's just yeah, so it's not as if they hired Latrell Sprewell or something. I like it's not gonna be an embarrassment in terms of how we face the public. Which, even though I don't think that was the case with Darvin Ham, he didn't do anything. There was no actions that he did that I felt like were humiliating to the Lakers. Just because he stands with his hands in his pockets or has a freaking mole in his head. We've gone over this a bunch of times. Regardless, I still think the demeanor is enough to where things can feel calm around JJ Redick. It'll never be calm because it's the Lakers and because he's a new coach and because he has media ties now, so they're going to get their little jabs in. Or maybe for the first time ever, because JJ's from ESPN, they're going to defend the Lakers. I don't really care either way. But it's going to be a lot going on. And I think, at the very least, JJ has the ability to be level-headed throughout that noise, which is, unfortunately, something that actually has to come into play as a Laker head coach. Like, that has to be part of the search process. But yeah, any final thoughts before we get out of here, Matt?
No, I mean, it could be a home run of a hire, but there's just a lot of uncertainty around it.
Yeah, it's truly the most boom or bust decision you can make, and it's hilarious doing that in potentially the last year of this mini window for winning a championship. But I mean, it doesn't. Whatever. It's decision is done. We're the Lakers. I said this ironically, but I kind of did mean it. I don't know if the Lakers are the place for just like a normal assistant coach that's just been kind of competent. That's not what the Lakers are about. For better or worse, sometimes for worse, but historically a lot of times for the better. So again, we're getting another show. We're getting a literal host, a color commentator to be our head coach, and we'll see where we go from there. Again, not official, but basically official. Regardless, if something changes, we'll be here. If something becomes official, we'll be here. Hope you stick around. Thanks for watching. Go Lakers.